Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Today channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Bill's house arrest for Luna delivers strict rules for new mansion dweller. According to the Bold and the Beautiful spoilers, Luna Nozawa may soon get her way. Bill Spencer will seek the terrible truth from Luna between December 30th and January 3rd, and he will not aid her until he has it. Although Luna has been playing up the concept of temporary insanity, Bill may believe the real tale is significantly more nefarious. Bill will strive for further information on Tom Starr and Paul Hollister's tragic deaths. Luna insists that Bill is the only one who understands her, thus he may argue that he understands her even better than she does. Bill may see through Luna's trickery and force her to explain that targeting Hollis and Tom was more than just a temporary loss of control. Although Bill may be tempted to abandon Luna, can he live with himself if she dies in jail? Luna claims that if she is left behind prison to fend for herself against the other inmates, this will happen. According to B&B spoilers, Bill may leave Luna, but he could eventually pull some strings and return to deliver some huge news. We know Bill is going to leak some ground rules, so he'll surely try to work something out here. What if Bill puts all of his money to good use and gets Luna out of home arrest? Bill may claim that he cannot risk Luna's life by leaving her there, but he also cannot risk anybody else's life by allowing her to leave his sight. Perhaps Bill's approach will be to throw some Spencer cash at the proper judges and guarantee that Luna is placed under house arrest at his home. Luna may become a mansion dweller again, which is why Bill may lay down some ground conditions for this arrangement. Of course, Luna has been wishing to be released from prison and return to Bill's house. This would be a fantastic outcome for Luna, so she may agree to whatever Bill asks of her. However, our forecasts indicate that Bill may be inviting more trouble than he bargained for when he utilizes his contacts to protect Luna from another attack. According to the Bold and the Beautiful spoilers, Luna will cause even more problems, so stay tuned for updates on all of the mounting issues. Luna beats herself to a bloody pulp for real and Bill? According to Bold and the Beautiful teasers, Bill Spencer will pay another visit to Luna Nozawa in jail, but this time she appears to have been severely abused. So, the publishing magnate wants to know what occurred. Next, Luna narrates her story. But you can't help but question if she's telling the truth or fabricating a story to draw Bill into her web of deception. Bold and the Beautiful, Luna Nozawa is a mess. On Bold and the Beautiful, Bill Spencer is drawn to Luna Nozawa for some reason. It is not a romantic desire that prevents him from cutting ties. But, for some reason, he feels a connection to Luna. Unlike the Spencer patriarch's perspective on the relationship, Luna attempted to entice him with the promise of a lover. But he considered himself as a father figure for her. So, after making earlier advances on him, she now makes a case for him to save her from a life in prison. But is she appealing to his father or attempting to seduce him into romance? Bill Spencer as Luna Nozawa on the Bold and the Beautiful. Last week on Bold and the Beautiful, a rogue intern invaded the jail's visiting area. It became clear that Bill had already pulled some strings. The guard stated that she had heard from his buddy that he was to spend time alone with this prisoner. So someone was breaking the rules for him. Then Luna Nozawa brushed her hair to one side with her palm. This revealed some awful-looking bruises and wounds on her face. As far as Bill Spencer is concerned, this is obviously effective. So, did she do this herself or pay another convict to do it to make Bill feel sorry for her? Is she a target for others behind those bars? B&B spoilers, is Bill Spencer bored? According to Bold and the Beautiful spoilers, Bill Spencer continues to communicate with Luna Nozawa by reading her letters and paying her visits in jail. Luna's invitation to visit appears to be a clear indication of her intentions. She's desperate and begs him to get her out. B&B fans wonder how Bill Spencer can still be involved with Luna Nozawa. He cannot be bored with nothing else to do. On Friday's cliffhanger, he sat through their encounter while she pleaded for help. So far, Bill has shown no indication that he intends to assist Luna Nozawa, so what's up with these strange visits? This is Bold and the Beautiful, so Bill might be cast as the guy who pulls some strings to get Luna released. In actual life, someone who killed two men and then was apprehended while attempting to murder her cousin's wife would most likely never see the outside world again. But that wasn't all, she also framed her mother for the murders. So, where does B&B intend for Bill to go during his visits to Luna Nozawa? Bold and Beautiful, Bill's infatuation with Luna fan theories. Fans of The Bold and the Beautiful speculate that Bill Spencer may discover that he is the father of Luna Nozawa. Fans are no longer astonished by a DNA test swap, given how many times it has occurred on this serial for one person or another. So maybe Bill discovers he is Luna's father. This would explain why B&B keeps Bill in there with Luna and appears concerned while doing so. Another belief holds that Bill Spencer is still in love with Luna's mother. So perhaps Bill's brief visits to Luna are simply an attempt to determine what kind of lady could produce such a monster. Although some fans believe that theory is too complex for Bill, dissecting connections is not his forte. It might be as simple as Bill Spencer identifying Luna Nozawa as a victim of her upbringing. Perhaps he wants to help her have a second chance by pulling some strings on the CBS soap. Elektra stood on the arena's edge, her crimson hair gleaming under the harsh artificial lighting. Remy, across from her, flexed his fingers, his slim frame coiled with predatory strain. The two locked eyes, creating a wordless struggle of wills. The audience screamed, they're chanting a jumbled symphony of excitement. This wasn't just a fight, it was a reckoning. Elektra could feel the weight of it in her bones, the unsaid history that had led to this point, the grudges etched into every movement they had shared building up to this encounter. Remy smirked, a savage curve on his lips. Elektra, you have nowhere left to run. It's time to settle this. Elektra responded with a flicker of her sword, the hum of its energy cutting through the noise. She didn't need words, her determination shouted louder than any taunt. She lunged forward, her motions a whirl of deliberate precision. Remy reacted with a sidestep, his quickness equal to her ferocity. The collision of their guns reverberated like thunder, creating an orchestra of destruction. Each blow was infused with years of rivalry. Elektra had always walked the line between rebellion and righteousness, a light of defiance in a world bound by authority. Remy, on the other hand, was the enforcer, a smart manipulator who flourished in both chaos and rules, twisting both to his will. He was once her closest ally before betrayal separated them. Is that all you have? Remy's tone was sarcastic, but there was a hint of respect underneath the confidence. Elektra didn't respond. Instead, she turned, her sword blazing in a devastating arc. Remy parried, and their swords locked in a flurry of sparks. You're still predictable, he said, but his sneer faded as Elektra twisted her wrist, driving his sword down. Predict this, she yelled, landing a kick to his chest that drove him staggering backward. For a minute, the crowd's scream sounded distant, muffled against the pounding of her pulse. Elektra took advantage, launching a flurry of blows that sent Remy scrambling. But he was no rookie, he recovered quickly, his counterattacks fast and unrelenting. Their conflict turned into a maelstrom of energy and anger, with each attempting to outlast the other. Meanwhile, Luna was fighting her own war in the shadows of a distant prison. The clang of iron bars rang as she was led into the desolate cage, her captor's laughter ringing in her ears. She could taste blood, metallic and bitter, trickling from a split lip. Her wrists were shackled, and her body ached from the thrashing she had received. But Luna's spirit remained intact. She had gone through worse. She had to be strong not just for herself, but also for others who rely on her. The guards threw her violently upon the cold, damp floor. Keep quiet, and you might make it through the night, one of them snarled as the cell door slammed shut. Luna waited until their footsteps faded before sitting up, groaning at the stinging pain in her side. Her fingers struggled with the bindings around her wrists. Every movement was painful, but she gritted her teeth and concentrated. She could not afford to give up now. As she fought to free herself, memories of Elektra and Remy returned unexpectedly. They had previously been a team, with each having a certain function to play. Elektra was the blade, overcoming difficulties with unwavering drive. Remy was the shadow, striking where least expected. Luna had served as their heart, keeping them anchored. But their togetherness had crumbled, trapping her in this hellhole as they fought an unnecessary conflict. When the ropes finally gave way, Luna sighed shakily. Her relief was short-lived. Heavy footsteps came, so she braced herself. The cell door creaked open, and a big guard walked inside, his eyes full of hate. "Didn't you learn your lesson?" Luna clenched her hands. She wouldn't go down without a fight. The guard attacked, but she was prepared, evading his punch and utilizing his momentum against him. Her survival training had sharpened her instincts over the years. The struggle was severe, with each action driven by desperation. When it was ended, the guard lay unconscious, and Luna stood over him, her breathing ragged. She didn't waste any time, she searched him for keys and sneaked out of the jail, her resolve burning stronger than ever. Back in the arena, Electra and Remy's combat continued. Both were beaten and bruised, with slower but equally determined movements. The air between them crackled with tension. This was more than just about winning, it was about demonstrating who they were and what they stood for. Electra's attention shifted to the throng, their expressions a jumble of expectation and bloodlust. She couldn't lose here. There was too much at stake. "You're strong," Remy said, his voice scratchy. "But strength alone won't save you." "I don't need saving," Electra responded. "And neither does Luna." Her words were a challenge, a reminder of what had been lost. Remy's smile faltered, revealing a glimmer of guilt behind his mask. It was all the opening Electra required. With a final burst of energy, she disarmed him, placing her blade at his throat. "Do it," he muttered, barely heard over the din of the crowd. Electra paused, her grip tightening. She then took a step back and lowered her blade. "No," she replied, her voice stern. "This ends here." The audience exploded in boos and applause, a wild mix of disappointment and approval. Remy looked at her, his expression opaque. For a minute, it appeared that he would assault again, but then he sighed and raised his hands to surrender. "You win, Electra." Luna emerged from the prison's labyrinthine halls, her body bruised but her spirit intact. She had no idea what awaited her outside these walls, but she did know one thing: she was not finished fighting. The world was cruel and merciless, and so was she. And as long as she had breath in her body, she would keep moving forward, no matter what. Bill's truth quest began on a rainy night in which the world appeared to melt into streaks of water and the dim glow of streetlights. He'd spent months chasing down pieces of a mystery that had burrowed deep into his psyche and refused to let go. It was more than just answers, it was also about redemption. The truth he sought was linked to a past he couldn't escape, a decision he couldn't reverse. As he wandered through the silent streets of a forgotten town, the weight of it all pressed down on him like an anchor. He held the faded photograph in his fingers, its edges ragged from countless hours of study. It was his lone clue, a connection to the mysterious man who held the secret to everything. The snapshot depicted a man with sharp features and eyes buried behind dark spectacles. In the background stood a decaying house, its windows broken and its walls damaged by time. Bill had scoured archives, interrogated individuals, and even broken a few laws to discover this location. He felt trepidation as he stood in front of the decaying edifice. The mansion felt alive with shadows, the kind that screamed about secrets best kept hidden. But Bill was fearless. He walked inside, the creak of the door sounding like a warning. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and decaying smells. Broken furniture littered the floor, and graffiti in strange patterns covered the walls. Bill's flashlight shone through the darkness, exposing shards of a life abandoned. He went gingerly, each step a gamble. He discovered it in the corner of what had once been a living room, a journal with a broken leather cover and yellowed pages from age. He cautiously opened it, and the thin trace of lettering sent shivers down his spine. The phrases were incoherent and fragmented, a representation of a mind dissolving. Despite the turmoil, there were names, dates, and locations. A breadcrumb trail that leads further into the labyrinth of truth. As Bill dove into the journal, the sound of footsteps behind him made him stop. He cautiously turned, and his illumination revealed a man standing in the doorway. It was Luna. Her complexion was pale, and her eyes were rimmed by black circles. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, with her clothes rumpled and filthy. "Bill," she said softly, her voice cracking. "You have to stop." Bill lowers the beam, his visage darkening. "You knew I was coming here. Why are you following me?" "Because this isn't going to end the way you think it will," Luna remarked, pushing forward. "You believe discovering the truth will solve everything, but it won't. It will simply ruin you." "I don't care," Bill retorted. "I need to know." Luna's hands trembled as she stretched out for him. "Please, Bill. I am imploring you. Let it go. We can walk away from this and start over. Nothing counts now." Her voice broke with the last phrase, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I can't lose you too." Bill faltered briefly. The pain in her voice, the desperation in her gaze, pierced the shield he'd constructed around himself. But then he shook his head and stepped aside. "I apologize, Luna. But I can't stop. Not now." Luna dropped to her knees, her tears muffled by the rain hitting the ceiling. "Then I'll come with you," she finally responded, whispering. "If you won't stop, then I won't either." Bill's jaw stiffened. He wanted to tell her to flee, to avoid the darkness he was about to enter. But he knew better than anyone that Luna was equally stubborn as he was. With a dejected nod, he returned to his journal, his hands quivering as he flipped over the pages. They worked together to solve the problem, with each revelation luring them deeper into the web of lies and half-truths that had trapped them both. The road that followed was unrelenting. They journeyed from dead areas to bustling metropolis, following clues that lead them closer to the truth of the mystery. Along the trip, they encountered both visible and invisible threats. The enigmatic figure in the snapshot appeared to be one step ahead of everyone else, leaving a trail of ruin in its wake. Bill and Luna's connection was tested as they dealt with the weight of their findings. Every answer they discovered seemed to raise a dozen new questions, and the truth became darker with each step. Finally, they found themselves standing in front of another abandoned house, this one even more dilapidated than the last. The air was thick with the promise of finality. Bill hesitated, his hand lingering above the doorknob. Luna placed her hand on his shoulder, grounding him. "Whatever happens," she murmured quietly, "we'll face it together." Bill nodded, his determination strengthening. He pulled the door open, sounding like a thunderclap in the silence. Inside, the shadows appeared to throb with malevolence. They went slowly, every squeak in the flooring setting their nerves on edge. They found him, the man from the photograph, in the center of the mansion. He sat in a chair, his dark spectacles reflecting the light from their flashlight. His smile was icy, and his presence exuded threat. "I've been expecting you," the man continued, his voice calm and leisurely. "You have gone a long way, Bill. Perhaps too far." "Tell me the truth," Bill shouted, his voice trembling. "Why did you do this?" The man chuckled, sending chills down their spines. "What is the truth?" he repeated, leaning forwards. "Bill, the truth is a fragile thing. Are you certain you're ready for it?" Bill noticed Luna's expression, which was a mix of dread and resolve. He turned back to face the man, his jaw hard. "I have come this far. I am not leaving without answers." The man smiled wider. "Very well," he murmured, his tone full of hatred. "But remember, once you know the truth, there's no turning back." Bill's demand for Luna was a confrontation that had been building for years, full of grief, regret, and whispered facts. The scene unfolded on the bleak expanse of a windswept plain, with the sky a stormy canvas of rolling gray clouds. Bill remained stiff, his figure sharp against the approaching storm. He was a man on the brink, his drive leaving deep lines on his face. Across from him, Luna hesitated, her arms crossed defensively, her gaze fixated somewhere beyond him, as if unable to meet the storm in his eyes. "Why did you leave?" Bill's voice was a harsh whisper, and the inquiry slashed through the air like a sword. "You vanished without a word. I looked everywhere for you, Luna. Do you know what that did to me? Luna's lips parted as if to speak, but she stumbled, her words swallowed by the screaming wind. Her silence was an answer in and of itself, reopening the wound and bleeding again. Bill took a step forward, his boots crunching against the fragile grass. "Don't you dare shut me out again," he exclaimed, his tone tightening. "I deserve the truth. You owe me so much." "What do I owe you?" Luna's voice eventually broke through, quivering but resolute. She turned to face him directly, her eyes filled with rage and pain. "Do you think I wanted to leave? You think I didn't struggle with that decision every day? Bill, I left because I had to. Because remaining would have ruined us both." Bill's jaw tightened, and his hands balled into fists by his sides. "That is not good enough. You don't just walk away from someone who will go to any length for you. You don't get to decide what is best for both of us without consulting me." Luna's eyes welled with tears, but she blinked them aside, her determination unwavering. "You do not comprehend. There were things you didn't know, and I couldn't tell you. If I had stayed, they would have came after you, Bill. And they wouldn't stop until they'd destroyed all we cared about." "Who?" Bill demanded, his voice raised in frustration. "Who are you talking about? What were you so terrified of that you believed disappearing was the only option?" Luna paused, her gaze flicking to the horizon, as if the answer was out in the distant. "There are forces in this world that you cannot fight, Bill. People that operate in the shadows and play games with lives similar to ours. I became a target, and so did you. Leaving was the only way to keep you safe." Bill shook his head, and a bitter laugh from his lips. "Protect me? Do you hear yourself? You abandoned me to face spirits I had no idea existed. I spent years hunting for you, tearing myself apart as I wondered what I had done wrong and what I could have done to keep you. Do you call that protection?" "It was the only way," Luna argued, her voice shaking from the strain of her remorse. "If I had stayed, they would have used me to reach you. I could not let that happen. I couldn't stand to see you suffer because of me." "I was hurt anyway," Bill replied, his voice shaking. "Do you believe you spared me suffering by leaving? You were my world, Luna. Losing you was the worst thing they could have done to me." Luna's shoulders dropped as her shields crumbled. She took a timid step forward, her tone softening. "I know I hurt you. And I'll have that guilt for the rest of my life. But you have to trust me when I say I thought I was doing the correct thing. I thought I was saving you." Bill's gaze met hers, the fury within him mirrored in her own. He wanted to hang on to his wrath, to let it protect him from the vulnerability that was about to engulf him. But seeing her standing there with tears flowing down her face made it impossible. "Why now?" he asked, his voice barely audible. "Why return after all this time?" Luna hesitated before reaching into her coat pocket and bringing out a folded piece of paper. She gave it to him, her hands trembling. "Because they are still out there. And now they're targeting both of us." Bill unfurled the paper, his heart sinking as he read the handwritten words on it. A list of names, including his and Luna's, accompanied by the terrifying message, "No one escapes." "We can't run from this," Luna stated calmly, despite the horror in her eyes. "But we can face this together. If you will allow me." Bill remained silent for a long time, his mind racing with emotions. Finally, he nodded, his resolve strengthening. "Together," he answered. "But this time, no secrets. We fight as one." Luna's eyes were filled with relief and determination. The storm raged around them, but they stood together, ready to face whatever darkness awaited them.